My name is Brian Watkins. I'll be teaching Accounting 231. Welcome to our first project, which is called the Fixed Payment Amortization Schedule. You should have reviewed the syllabus, the frequently asked questions, a number of videos regarding class policies and hard coding, cheating, particularly the Microsoft 5-part series on Introduction to Excel, so that you won't be in a situation where you have to go back and refer to that in order to understand what I'm going to do. So Sample Exam 1 is available in Module 1, printed out. It looks very similar to the test that you will be given at the end of the module. And what you're going to do next is open up an Excel worksheet. This is what comes up. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate that the Testing Center computers may open up in 2007 or 2010 if you're not careful. We use Excel 2010, which can always be identified by the green File tab. Okay? If you see the green light, go. Just always get in the habit of looking for that tab. If it opens up in 2007, there may be differences, very small differences, but there may be something that's hard to find or may cause you trouble. Always look to open up the right version of Excel. Now, as you saw in the Microsoft tutorials, you can have a very effective spreadsheet without having any formatting whatsoever. You can just type numbers and use it like a calculator. We're trying to teach you a little different standard. We're trying to teach a way of using this software regularly to accomplish professional and individual objectives in such a way that you can both advance in employment or become more successful in your business. So we're going to teach a number of rules that, if followed, will keep you out of trouble. The first rule is to always include information about your spreadsheet. So each spreadsheet that you construct for this class will have a title section. The title section will have the main title first in bold and underline. If I hold the Control key down with one finger and hit the U key and the B key, you'll see up here bold and underline have now been toggled on automatically. I don't have to click or move my mouse around. I've used what's called a shortcut. And the name, of course, is on your sample exam. It is the Fixed Payment Amortization Schedule. Next is prepared by and your name. And I want you to note that there is no colon in that line. It's just prepared by your name. The next line says prepared on and then today's date. Finally, on the fourth line, you're going to use a colon. You're going to go purpose, colon. That's the only colon I want to see in the data or in the title section. Okay, what's the purpose? This spreadsheet prepares a loan schedule showing the monthly payments on a fixed interest loan with a fixed period of up to 30 years. Okay? What's the period? The schedule will show the month and the amount of principal and interest contained in each loan payment. An amortizing loan means amort is, or mort is the root comes from French, means death. So an amortizing loan is a loan that dies. It goes from some amount to zero. And it does it with a fixed payment. Your payment is the same every month. But in that payment, some part of it goes to pay off the principal amount of the loan, and the rest goes to cover the interest rate for the amount of money that you still owe. In order to do that, you need to do some calculus. Fortunately, Excel has a function that we're going to use to determine what the payment is going to be. So when you're graded, you have to tell me what the spreadsheet is doing, but you don't have to memorize everything that I've said here in the purpose line. Watch what happens. When I hit enter, it'll just go off to the edge. We're going to move up and select. All of the text is in cell A4. Okay, if you look at the formula bar, which is right here, and formula bar, if I move over to B4, it's empty. So to get this to contain the text, I'm going to hold the shift key down. I'm going to go over to column G, and then I'm going to lift off of my shift key. I'm going to click on merge and center, which is going to make all of those cells one big cell. And it will center everything inside there. Next, I'm going to wrap the text. Okay, then I'm going to pull the text. I'm going to put the cursor between the 4 and the 5 and the row indicator on the left. Click and pull it down. And you can see the words were wrapping and they're centered. Finally, these 6 cells at the top of your screen determine whether text is top, bottom, or middle, left, right, or center. The first thing you must do is make it top aligned. Okay? Each one of these is 2 points. So you top align it and you left justify it. And then you just bring up the bottom to match. That will make sure that the spacing between line 3 and 4 is perfect. Again, 4 has to be, you have to go out to column G, merge and center, wrap the text, top align it, and left justify. That's a lot to remember on the first one, but you're going to do this on every single one of the projects that we do in this class. So remember how to do it, because there are some points involved. The reason why we teach you to do this is that oftentimes after a year or so of employment, you're going to have hundreds of different files on your screen. When you open it up, you want to know exactly what it does. If you just see some random numbers and columns, you're not going to remember from one project to the next. So get in the habit, at least in our class, it's going to pay off in points. Title, bold and underlined, a prepared by and prepared on line, neither of which have a colon in them. And then row 4, which will have a purpose statement, which will include everything that you're designing your spreadsheet to do, and it will have all of those functions that we just reviewed. That's the title section. All computer programs collect data, process data, and then output data. So the section of your program that collects the data is going to be called the data section. Control U and B, data section. Always bold and underline your titles. Okay, now I hold the shift key down. I'm going to go back out to G. And this time I'm going to create a background color in these cells. I'm going to use the fill bucket here. This controls the background of the cell. And I'm going to make it a light blue. So when I click away, I haven't merged these cells. Okay, if it was merged, you'd see that black line go around the whole thing. But what I have done is I've created a bar of a certain color. Now I'm going to select those cells again, and I'm going to wrap that bar with a thick border. Not a regular border, but a thick border. Now I back out. You can see that. The reason why we're using a color here is to be a visual cue to the user that when they see a color, that's the data section. Alright, now we're going to collect certain data from our user. We're going to get the home price, since we typically, amortization schedule is typically done for a mortgage. Banks never give you 100% of the money that you want to buy something. They require you to make some amount of the payment yourself without their help to prove that you're worthy of credit. The amount that you pay yourself is called the down payment and is figured as a percentage of the amount of the loan. So if I say I want to borrow $1 million and the bank says that's great, but we want 50% down, that means they're willing to give me $500,000 if I will put up the other $500,000. So once we know the down payment percent, now we know the down payment We could just call it the down payment. Let's put a dollar sign there just to remind us that this is the down payment in dollars. Once we have the down payment in dollars, we can deduct that from our home price, and that will tell us the amount financed. How much did we borrow from the bank? We borrowed everything except our down payment. The next piece of information that we need, if you look at your sample test, is the interest rate. Interest rates are always given in terms of annual rates. Okay? Unless if you're ever given a rate that says like 1% monthly, convert it to an annual rate, because the convention is whenever we tell people an interest rate, it's presumed to be an annual rate. The loan is going to have some period in years. Okay? 5-year loan, 10-year loan, 30-year loan. Your test will tell you that you need to provide 30 years of entries. The loan period has to have 30 years. All right, and then the monthly payment is what we're going to calculate using that calculus I told you about that Excel has built in. All right, now you see how our columns are narrow here? We want to widen them up, give us some working room. So I'm going to start with B. Hold the shift key down, go over to F. Actually, I did that wrong. Can't do it that way. So I'm going to click out, click on B, the column heading. Hold the button down, slide over to F. Okay, now I've selected these columns. Now if I right click, I get the column width. That doesn't come up for any, unless you have columns selected. So there's the column width. Right now it's like 8, 8.5. Put a 13. Hit OK. All right, now a couple things have happened. You've freed up some space in your big cell here. Don't lose points. Keep that cell adjusted just right. One of your format rules is that any section heading has one blank before and after, and you want that just to be one consistent line. If I don't adjust row 4, that looks like 1, 2, 3 blank lines. So we want to keep it just right. Okay, and the other thing that you're going to be looking at, you're going to print this out and give it to a client. So if you look at the print, you can see that what we're doing is designing a page, and I've given you a data section and a header that just fits nicely on one page. So that's why we're doing the things we're doing. Okay, now the home price is going to be given to you. Let's just say $750,000. Let's say the percent, 25%. 1/4 you have to pay up front. Down payment in dollars, well, you're going to have to calculate that. Amount financed, you're going to have to calculate that too. The interest rate you're going to be given, let's say 4.25%. Okay? Loan period in years, remember we had to go at least 30. Monthly payment you're going to calculate. Here's another very important formatting rule. Anywhere I've put a number, that's a cell that I'm going to design the spreadsheet to be able to change. If there's no number there, that means I'm calculating it. That means I can't just change that number because I'm going to have a formula there. So for the numbers that are entered by the user, we're going to make sure they have a blue background. Blue background. There's another trick. I'll show you a trick here. If I hold the control key down, I can click on cells and I can do their formatting all at once. Comes in handy when you're going fast. Now, because of the data section is highlighting these 7 pieces of information, I think it's good to center them because they each stand apart. All right, you're not done. Home price, I'm holding control down now. Click on the home price, down payment in dollars, amount financed, and monthly payment. And the format that we're going to give to those cells is going to be currency. Why currency? Because currency keeps it centered. If I use the accounting format, then it will split the dollar sign to the far left and it won't center. Accounting is great for tables, but follow me here. We're just doing a data section, and you saw me format blank cells. Why? Because we're going to put numbers in there later, and now we don't have to worry about making them fit. So let's do our two percentages. I hold Control down, I click on this one, and then I go up to the format and I select percent. And they both happen at the same time, and I'll just click outside here. 25% is fine for a down payment. You're not going to have 25 point something. But for the interest rate, you remember it was 4 1/4. I want to show precisely the rate of interest, so I have to increase my decimals. 1, 2. Okay. If we had an eighth, it would be 125, and we'd add a third. Typically, you probably get away with 2. But you're not going to have a decimal on your down payment. You will on interest rate. So just learn these two keys up here at the top. 1 increases decimals, 1 decreases them. Okay. Now, the next thing you need to know is that when you have a cell, every cell has an address. Right now, the selected cell is F16. Now it's D8. But I know that D8 has more information in it than just D8. It has the home price, which is never going to change. So I'm going to go to this box up here at the top. I'll escape out and go back. This box right here is called the name box. That's where the name of the cell is found. Right now the name is D8. If I click on it, I can type home price. I can run the words together, or I can put an underline there to make a space. But I can't put any spaces inside a name. So now that cell is no longer D8. That cell is home price. And I can call home price from anywhere. Let's go down here. I want to call it home price. 750,000 popped up. Okay, so that's the reason we're going to name our cells, so that we can use their contents in formulas later on. Down underscore payment underscore. I can't use the percent, so I'll call it percentage instead of using the percent symbol. The next one, I'm just going to call it down payment, because that's what it is. It's the down payment. Now, here's another way to do it. I'm clicking on this cell, which is going to hold amount financed. I can go to the formula ribbon, and the defined names right here, I'm going to use, I'm going to define the name, and this box comes up. And instead of typing it up here where the D11 is in the name box, I can just type it in the new name box. I could type amount underscore financed. And that will always refer to sheet 1, that's a tab at the bottom, that's the name of the tab. And then $D, $11, which if you watched your Microsoft videos, you know that that's an absolute reference. It will never change. I can copy it all over the spreadsheet, but it will always point to cell D11. Okay, interest rate, do the same thing. Let's do it this way. Define name. Interest rate. There we go. Loan period in years. Okay. Loan period in years. I just did that with no spaces. And then finally, this will be monthly payment. Okay? Now, why do we spend the time to do that? Because it makes our formulas easy to understand. Obviously, this is a small, simple spreadsheet. But when you get into the workplace, you're going to be dealing with hundreds of pages of this stuff. And if you see a big mess of D8 minus E6, it's going to make no sense. Better to build your formulas using names. You always build a formula by typing the equal sign first. Then you can decide from any number of different ways how to access the names that you're going to use. My down payment in dollars is going to be the down payment percentage of the home price. Remember, the bank won't loan us the whole $750. They'll loan us 75%. We have to come up with the down payment, or 25%. So we figure that out by saying our down payment is the home price. I just clicked on that and home price came up. times, and I'm going to click on the 25% down payment percentage. Okay, and you'll see here that home price is blue, and there's a blue box around that cell. Down payment percentage is green, and there's a green box around the 25%. So if I hit enter, there's my number. And you know, we took the time to format it while it was still a blank cell, so it came up looking perfectly formatted. If we hadn't done that, okay, to take the formatting off of a cell, you go to General. Then I would have seen that number, and it was centered because we centered everything. And then you put the format on by going Currency. So that's our down payment. Our amount financed, I'll show you another way to get at it. I can go to Formulas. I can use in Formula for my name manager, and I can say, well, take my home price and subtract from it my down payment. See, you've got your green box for down payment, your blue box for home price. It should already be formatted. We're borrowing $562,500. Okay? And that shows you if your names aren't working, if, for example, you had this box selected when you named down payment percentage, which is a common error, a lot of students do that, then you go to your name manager and you highlight this and you double check. Oh, you know, if you see 750,000 right up here on the down payment percentage line, you'll know there's some problem. For new users of Excel, the easiest thing to do, let's say I screwed up on my down payment. Select it, delete it. Just dump it. This is what I'm seeing here. Do you want to delete it? And I'd hit OK, and then I'd redo it. But Name Manager is where you can edit any one of your names. All right, now, monthly payment. We're going to use a function for that. We're not going to do the calculus. We're going to let Excel do it. So you go to your formulas. And there's a function library here. The financial function, I'll pull this up so it's on your video, that we're going to use is the payment function. And it tells you exactly what it's about. Calculates the payment for a loan based on constant payments and constant interest rate. If I click on it this way, a box comes up. The arguments of a function are the numbers that the function is designed to use to come at its result. There are 3 bold arguments. That means it has to have at least these 3 numbers. The interest rate, the number of periods in the loan, and the present value, or the amount that you borrowed. You can also use a future value or certain different types of amortization. We're not going to use those in this project. So even though I'm going to just type PMT, if you forget what PMT means, by all means, go to the function library. And, for example, PV, you forgot what it meant. So you open up the function and you say, oh, PV is the present value, the total amount that a series of future payments is worth now, meaning the amount you borrowed from the bank. Okay, so let's get our monthly payment. All formulas begin with equal, and then PMT, and then an open parenthesis. Okay, now you get a box that comes open and it will tell you step by step what you need to do. The bold one is the current one. And if I forgot what's going on, I just click on payment and a help box would open up. What's my rate? Well, I named it. It's interest rate. So instead of putting a number there, I put a reference. If I had put a number there, then my spreadsheet would never change. Even if I changed the number in the cell, the payment would always have that number. That's called hard coding. Don't do it. You want your spreadsheets to be flexible. As soon as I hit the comma now, that bold will change. You watch that rate there. I'm going to hit a comma. Now it changes to number of periods because it has its interest rate. Well, the number of periods, that's going to be loan period in years, but times 12. Don't forget the times 12. Because our periods are monthly for this. Okay, comma. Now it'll change to PV. Okay, and the amount financed. Now let's double check. Oh, I made a mistake. Okay, here's my mistake. I'm going to click on rate, go back to my rate. My interest rate is in years. Okay, 4.25% per year. In order for it to work, I have to take my rate. Whoops. I'm going all over the place. Let's start with the rate. And I have to divide it /12. Okay. Now my rate matches my loan period. Since I'm going to have 30 times 12 months, my interest rate has to be a monthly interest rate, and I divide by 12. If I was doing a weekly amortization schedule, which some people do, they pay every week, I would have to divide the interest rate by 52 and multiply my 30 years by 52, and that would be the number of payments. But typically we use months. The way to always close a function is with a parenthesis. That will tell the Excel that you've got all the arguments in the function. And my monthly payment is $2,767.16. Now it's negative because that financial convention is when I'm making a payment to the bank, it's leaving my account, so it's a negative to me. Well, we don't want to have to explain that to the client, so we're just going to put a negative sign up here in our formula to force that to be a positive number. There's our monthly payment. So that's our data section. These blue backgrounds are the only things that can change. For example, if I change this loan period to 10 years, what would happen? Well, I'd have to pay that amount off much quicker, so my monthly payment is going to increase. As soon as I hit it, here's my monthly payment. As soon as I hit enter, watch it. It almost doubled. Okay? If I had hard-coded, meaning I hit F2 to see the formula, meaning instead of loan period in years, I just typed 30, then the formula wouldn't adjust. I want my formulas to adjust. So let's go back to the 30. There it is. All right, so now we're going to do our answer section. We have the data. Now we're going to provide it for the user. So I'm going to hit enter. Go back. I'm going to hold the shift key down. I'm going to go out to the edge of my page there. See this little dashed line? That's telling you helpfully where your page break is. And I'm going to call it a different color. Blue means data section. And you are expected to make this background the same exact color as your section bar. So let's see here. We're going to use, how about a light green? We're going to wrap it, because the rules say to wrap it. We're going to have a blank line above it and below it. Okay, so there's our answer section. So now let's do our formulas. We're going to use column headings. Column headings come one blank line after the section bar. They must be bold, underlined, and centered. So I hit Control U, Control B, click on the center. I think there's a shortcut for it. The shortcut would be to hold the Alt key down, type H, come on, Alt key, H, okay, and then AC. If you want to do it completely without touching your mouse, then you type AC to center. That's how people get really quick. Okay, so we bold, underline, centered. We're going to start with our month. Okay, then we're going to have the monthly payment. Of course, that didn't come out, so let's just call it payment. Interest, principal, total amount. Okay, so now let's just do this all at once. So I'm going to highlight them all, bold, underline, center. Okay, there's my column headings. That column doesn't need to be quite so big, does it? There we go. Now, another rule that I like to follow is that when I have just a single digit or two digits, like in a month, if you keep it over to the side, it gets confused with the payment number. See how close it is? So I would like you to center your month numbers. All right? So month 0, you're going to have a total amount of amount financed. Okay, that's what we're going to start with. So I'll hit enter, and let's. The other thing I don't like, and it's up to you. You can use dollar signs. There are 3 acceptable formats for an answer section. My preferred is to just use a comma format. It's also okay to use a counting format, and it's also fine to use a currency format. But if you do it in one column, you must do it in all columns that have dollar amounts. If you do it in just the first row, that's fine, but they all have to be the same. You can't have different formats going across. Okay, now we're going to have 360 months because we have 30 loan period in years. So 30 years, that means we have to go down to 360. You'll grow old typing from 0 to 360. So we're going to highlight the 0, the 1, and the 2. Okay, and the way you do that, I click on the 0, hold the shift down, 2 down arrows. Or I click on the 0, hold the button down on the mouse, and pull down, and then lift off. Now I've selected the 3. Now that little black bump on the bottom right of the box is the fill, it's the autofill. Right now I have a white cross for my cursor, but if I hover over that black, it turns black. Now if I click and pull it down, autofill will become active. And you see that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? It sees the 0, 1, and 2 and knows that I'm trying to count down. So I'm going to go to 360. Unfortunately, you can't see. Here, I'll be right back. Okay, now I brought the end of the page up here. Let's back up using the undo. So now I'm back to the beginning here. If I click on the 0, 1, and 2, then it sees automatically 3, 4, 5, and I can just hold my mouse down until I get to 360. There we go. Now when I lift up, and the reason it did that is because I formatted the 0 but not the 1 and the 2, so it had formatted, unformat, unformat. But we can fix them all right now by hitting center. Center. There we go. Okay, click out. That is a skill that you need to practice, but it's really great. Look at this. January, February, and if I select the 2, it'll fill it up with months. Or I'm going to hit clear contents. It'll also work for Jan, Feb, and it'll fill in the months with. See, nice. So autofill, learn to use it. It'll come in handy. All right, so there's our months, and I hope that you see that we're not going to do a whole lot of typing from this point forward. So what's our payment going to be? In month 1 and every successive month, it will be the same amount. So we go equals monthly payment. There it is. I like to use the comma format. Now, another thing that this magic black box does when I change it, if I double click, it will autofill all the way down to where there's no longer any number to the side. Okay, it automatically senses that, oh, there's something here, and it'll fill up this column until it runs out of values in this column. So here goes. I'm going to double click. So now my payment goes all the way down just to the 360. So that's autofill. And you're expected to have the last numbers in your table look just as good as the numbers at the beginning of your table. Okay, how do we calculate interest? Well, interest is equal to principal times rate times time. So we're going to do a formula. How much, on month 1, how much interest do we have to pay? Well, we have to pay on this amount. And when I hit this, I'm going to bring in F19. I'm not going to use amount financed because I want this to change every month. I want every month to look at the number that's two columns over and one row up. That's called a relative address. So when I copy this address down, the next time it's going to be G19, and then H19. Or sorry, it's going to be F20, and then F21, and F22. So there's the principal times, what's my rate? Well, here's my interest rate. Okay, but my interest rate is an annual rate, and I'm trying to figure out just month 1. So I divide that by 12. And dividing by 12 is the same as multiplying times 1/12. So I have principal times rate times time, PRT. Okay, I have to use these parentheses. Again, hopefully you watched the video that I provided from the Microsoft lady, where she did some good training on the order of operations. If I don't put the parentheses here, it's going to multiply first and then divide by 12, and I'm going to get the wrong answer. So there's my interest for the first month. Hit the comma. Now if I send this down right now, it's going to have errors after this because there's no number to get. But I'll do it anyway. I'll just double click. Okay. So the formula is all there. As you go down, you see that F20 changes to F21, F22, but the interest rate is always pointing up to this cell. So that interest rate name is an absolute reference, and the F19 reference is a relative reference. Okay, principal is easy, right? If my monthly payment consists of interest plus principal, and I've figured out what my interest is, then I take my payment, C20, and I subtract the interest, which is D20, and that's my principal. Okay, and I could copy that all the way down. Now disregard these numbers because we haven't filled in this amount yet. Okay, so what is the next month's principal balance? And here's where most problems arise on this test. You have to remember that interest is the money you pay the bank just for the privilege of having the money. None of that $1,992 goes to pay back any debt. That just goes to the bank. But the $774.97, that does go to pay back the debt. So the debt is F19 minus the principal amount. That's my new total. And if I copy this down, then everything, I will know it works if it amortizes or goes to 0. And so as I come down here, I keep having my monthly payment. That's my interest, that's my principal. And then I get down to 360 and it hits exactly 0. 20 points for getting the 0, 5 points per formula, and then it's -2 for each formatting error you might have. Okay, now we're not done. Close, but we're not done. There's one thing remaining. Go to your page layout, go to your print titles, and go to a footer. Not the header, bottom here, the footer. Do a custom footer. And see that little file icon? That'll insert a file path. We can either do left or center. Center's fine. Let's do center here. And I'm going to insert path and file. Why do I do that? Hit OK. Because I'm going to forget someday where this file is on my computer. But if my client brings me in something and says, hey, you gave me this schedule years ago, here's what my output looks like. Go to File, go to Print, and you can see right at the bottom there is going to be a path to show where the original program is. Now, always check your output before you go to print. This looks nice, it's balanced. I can print it all out, staple it, give it to my client, and there is the full amortization of their loan. But what's even more powerful, and the reason why we have spreadsheets, is that we can change things. Well, what if the interest rate is lower? What if it's 3.25? So I go 3.25. Okay, now what if my loan period is only 15 years? And what if I have a larger down payment, a 40% down payment? Well, now my loan is going to amortize. It's going to go right here. It's going to amortize, and that's 180. That's 15 years. Everything after this is just junk because it doesn't apply to us. But you see that the calculator works even though we had different numbers to begin with. So I gave you 25% there, 4.25, and 30. Let me just show you briefly how I go about grading these. Some of it you can see. Are the columns bold, underlined, and centered? Are the columns wide enough? I don't know why, but a lot of students will turn in stuff with these tiny little columns, and it goes to hash marks. That'll get you dinged. Okay, you remember at the beginning where I highlighted B through F, and I right-clicked. Whoops, let's do it again. Highlighted B through F, right-clicked column width, and I made it a 13. Okay, if you do that, you're okay. You're not going to get any minus points for having too narrow columns. Again, you see how I'm consistent with my use of dollar signs. If I want to do it this way, don't forget that one. If I did it this way, that would be fine too. But can you see how those dollar signs get kind of tiring after a while? So I'll just format those back as commas, and then I double click here to copy it all the way down. Take that off. But it is acceptable to put a dollar sign in the first number of each. If something inside you just screams that you want to see a dollar sign, this is a perfectly acceptable format. Not this. You can have the top of each column with a dollar sign. Otherwise, if you don't want to worry about remembering that rule, comma. Alright, now what do I do to come and check for hard coding? Well, I change my view to a formula view, and I look and I say, okay, the only numbers that I should see on this whole sheet are in blue. Good. Then I can look and say home price, down payments, interest rates, and I can instantly see if you know what you're doing. So put it back. I've checked there. I check your output. I go to print and I say, do they have their file path footer? I look at your number 4 to see that it's adjusted right. I look at your title section for a bolded, underlined, prepared by, prepared on, without colons, purpose with a colon. Data section, the colors are consistent. There's a thick black border around the colors. Just make it look as close to this as you possibly can. And now you're going to go to File. Probably should have done this at the beginning. Save as. And you're going to save it with Accounting 231 Fixed Payment Test, and then you're going to put your name here. So I'll just put my name here, all right? And that will be the sample. This will be visible. I'll save it right now, and I will post this. And you can look at my formulas. You can change things around. That's fine. But if you were to try and bring this into the testing center, that's cheating. You've got to start from a blank spreadsheet. Okay, so this is our first project. I'll provide videos for you on the rest of the projects. I'll provide videos where I see, for example, when I do a grading, I'm going to grade a couple tests with the video going so that you can see how I assign scores. But the way to prepare, now that you've watched this video, is to go and try and do it by yourself without the video. And then every time you can't remember exactly what to do, you make a note to yourself. Do 2 or 3 times a day. not more than an hour about. Then just put it on the shelf, come back to it the next day and say, okay, now I'm going to do it. I've examined the video, I've checked, I've learned how to do that formula I forgot, and then you practice it again. And you do it over and over again, just a few times a day. And that will produce greater results, and you'll do much better in this course than you will if you let it wait until the last 2 days before the test and do it 10 or 11 times right in a row. You want to make mistakes and learn how to overcome them. That's something that I can't fully test. I make plenty of mistakes as I go along, but I've had students complain when I make too many mistakes. You have to make them yourself and learn how to overcome them, learn how to clean things up. For example, let me do one for you. You go through here and you do your border, and oops, I've got a line here. I don't want that line. I want to get rid of that line. Well, what you do is you select that cell, you click on your borders, and you say no border. You erase all of them. Okay, well now, I'm stuck without this border. So now I re-highlight the whole color bar, and I go back to thick box border. Boom, there it is. That's something simple, but little simple things cost you points, and I see students that forget to do that. The other thing is, okay, I've got my my column headings. Let's say you're getting ready to print this out and you realize, oh, I didn't center my column headings. Okay, you just highlight them all, center them all at the same time. Or I'll see things like this, where I'll have everything perfectly formatted on one page, but then if I scroll down, I'm going to see something like, let me do this. I see something like, oh, everything looks good, but as I scroll down, all of a sudden it becomes gibberish. It's minus 2 points for each one of those. That's minus 8 right there. So be sure that you have clean formatted numbers at the top, and you copy them all the way to the bottom, and that you do a simple check. The other thing that I take a lot of points off, and I know a lot of folks are speaking English as a second language, and our spelling in English is difficult. Learn right now that the principal on a note is P-A-L, not P-L-E. Okay? Let me type it here. Principal, not principal like that. This one is the one you use when you're talking about finance. Okay? So save yourself some grief and always get those right. The other thing you can do, and it takes very little time, is to go to Review ribbon and click on your spell check. Okay? And it'll say this. Do you want to continue checking at the beginning? Say yes. And then it'll say complete for the whole sheet. Or if I start at the beginning and do my spell check, it'll say complete for the entire sheet. It's 2 points off for each spelling error. So just do a spell check. It's very easy to do. All of these are good habits. We're running really long on this first video because there's just so many things to discuss. But it'll get easier. It'll get quicker for you. So good luck on your first test. If you feel confident, get yourself into the testing center and take it. You have 30 minutes. You don't have to wait until the deadline. You can take it right away. And if you go in early in the morning, you get your own computer. You can select your favorite place to sit, and you can get all the points. Just get it done. All right, I have posted hours if you want to come see me, or you can email me, and I look forward to working with you in this course.